$3.75 billion as SpaceX hit the market on day one with zero restrictions, no lockup, no waiting period, no broker freeze. Sold at the same $135 offer price you were trying to get. Meanwhile, if you were lucky enough to land an allocation through Fidelity, your own broker blocked you from selling for 15 days. Robinhood made it 30. SoFi threatened a $50 fee if you touched your shares inside 120 days. Same stock, same price. Completely different rules. If you are a self-directed investor in your 30s, 40s, or 50s who follows the news, does the research, and still walks away from major market events feeling like the game was already over before you arrived, this is not paranoia. It is architecture, and the SpaceX IPO just handed us the clearest diagram of that architecture we have ever seen. The math behind this is worse than the headline suggested. Let me show you exactly how it works. Let's start with what everyone got right. SpaceX reserved up to 30% of its IPO for retail investors. That is 3 to 6 times the standard allocation. On a $75 billion raise, 30% works out to $22.5 billion available to individual investors. Jay Ritter at the University of Florida, who has tracked IPO data since 1980 and is known in academic circles as Mr. IPO, called the retail tranche bigger than the largest IPO in U.S. history by itself. That is a real and meaningful concession to individual investors. The company also named 5 official brokers as direct channels to the $135 offer price. Fidelity, Schwab, Robinhood, SoFi, and E-Trade. Not the open market price after the bell, the actual offer price. So far, this sounds like progress. And in one narrow sense, it is. But here's what the headlines mostly skip. Demand from retail investors alone exceeded $100 billion, against $22.5 billion available. That means at minimum 77% of retail orders went unfilled. Most people who wanted in did not get in. And the ones who did get a small slice immediately encountered something the friends and family group never had to think about. Call it the freeze window. The freeze window is the holding period your broker imposes after an IPO allocation. It is not a legal requirement. There is no SEC rule mandating it. Each broker sets its own terms, which is why the numbers vary so dramatically. Fidelity chose 15 calendar days. Robinhood and SoFi chose 30. SoFi added a $50 fee for selling before day 120. Schwab applies its rules deal by deal and requires a $100,000 minimum account balance just to qualify. E-Trade sets a 30-day preference period with vague language about future consequences. The penalties for breaking the freeze window are not trivial. Sell too early at Fidelity and your first violation earns a 6-month ban from future IPO access. Second violation, 1 year. Third violation, permanent, tied to your social security number. SoFi runs a similar ladder, 180 days, then a year, then permanent. Robinhood is more forgiving with a flat 60-day timeout on the first offense, but the timeout applies across every IPO on the platform. Now hold all of that in your head and look at what the friends and family group was dealing with at the exact same moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing. This is where the access gap becomes visible, not as a feeling, as a number. The access gap is the distance between two groups who bought the same stock at the same $135 price on the same day. Group 1 is the friends and family carve-out. 5% of the offering, roughly $3.75 billion allocated to, and I am quoting directly from the amended filing SpaceX submitted on June 1st, 2026. Certain employees and persons, which may include parties with whom we have business relationships, and friends and families of our executive officers. Morgan Stanley administered the program. The selection criteria beyond that, entirely at the discretion of company executives. No public criteria, no application process you could find on Google. Group 2 is you. If you were among the minority of retail investors who got an allocation, you paid the same $135. You own the same Class A shares, and you cannot sell for 15 to 30 days minimum with escalating penalties if you try. Group 1 could sell at market open on day 1. Group 2 is frozen. Imagine 2 bars on a graph. Both bars start at $135. The first bar is green. That is the friends and family block. The moment the bell rings, that bar is liquid. It can move. It can lock in a gain or cut a loss based on real-time information. The second bar is yours. It is gray. It sits there for 15, 30, or 120 days regardless of what the market does. The green bar is making decisions with live data. The gray bar is hoping the thesis holds. That gap is not about the lockup most people imagine when they hear the word IPO. Here is the part that requires some precision, because the Steelman version of this story is real and worth taking seriously. Most of SpaceX's shares are actually locked up. Elon Musk, who controls roughly 42% of equity and 85% of voting power, is subject to a 366-day restriction. Another 28% unlocks after the Q3 earnings report. The full remainder comes off at 180 days. Selling pressure on day one comes from new shares issued in the IPO plus the friends and family block. The broader institutional ecosystem is locked too. So the lockup is not a fiction designed purely to harm retail. The majority of the company cannot sell either. That structure genuinely protects the market from a supply wave on day one. If hundreds of billions of dollars of insider shares hit the open market simultaneously, the price would crater and retail would be the first to get hurt. That is a legitimate case for lockups, and it is correct. But it does not explain why the friends and family carve-out is exempt. The argument for broad lockups is supply stability. A $3.75 billion block of freely tradable shares is not supply stability. It is a specifically carved exception. The lockup protects the market from insiders. The exemption protects certain insiders from the lockup. The access gap is not about who is locked and who is free. It is about who was invited to be free and who made the invitation list. If you are sitting here thinking, fine, but at least I got the offer price, that 30% allocation was more than I usually get, let me show you what the offer price actually means in practice. From 1980 through 2025, US IPOs have averaged a first-day pop of roughly 19% according to Jay Ritter's data. On a $135 offer price, 19% is about $25 per share. If SpaceX opens at 160 and you're frozen for 30 days, you cannot capture that move. The friends and family group can sell at 160, 165, 170, or decide to hold. The freeze window means you are watching someone else's auctions. Now here is where it gets structural. The friends and family allocation is not small. $3.75 billion is not a rounding error at any company on Earth other than the ones measured in trillions. The 5% carve-out is well below any standard applied to mature public companies or even to recent IPOs. Most established index stocks trade with free floats above 80%. The S&P 500 requires a minimum 10% public float for membership eligibility. SpaceX's total public float at listing is roughly 4% of the company. Of that 4%, the friends and family portion can move freely from the opening bell. You might be thinking, Thane, I understand the asymmetry, but the friends and family program exists at every IPO. This is not unique to SpaceX. You are right. Directed share programs are standard practice. What sets SpaceX apart is that most directed share programs include a lockup for participants. Bloomberg reported this explicitly. The exemption from lockup requirements for those on the friends and family list is what makes this arrangement unusual. The company waived a restriction that typically applies in such programs. The access gap is not a quirk. It was a deliberate design choice. If this kind of structural breakdown is the lens you want on the financial systems that touch your portfolio, Salary to Strategy publishes one of these every week. Subscribing takes about 4 seconds and costs exactly nothing. So what does the protocol look like from here? 3 steps. Step 1. Verify your broker's freeze terms before you submit an indication of interest on any IPO, not after, before. The terms are broker-specific, they are not regulated, and they can change by deal. A 30-day freeze during a volatile window is not a minor inconvenience. It is a binding constraint on your ability to manage risk. Schwab's terms for SpaceX are different from Schwab's terms for the next offering. Check the IPO center for each deal individually, not just once at account opening. Step 2. Separate your excitement about the company from your analysis of the structure. SpaceX may be an extraordinary business. Starlink's first quarter 2026 operating income was over $1 billion. The Starship program has genuine monopoly characteristics in heavy lift launch. None of that changes who got the first door and who got the freeze. You can be bullish on the company and clear-eyed about the access structure simultaneously. These are different variables. Step 3. Price your time horizon in terms of what you actually own. If the friends and family group sells at a 19% pop and you cannot sell for 30 days, you're not in the same trade. You are in a different instrument with a different risk profile and a different exit window. The offer price gets you in the door. The freeze terms define what door you are actually standing in. Here is the reframe that matters. Every dollar you made from your day job this year or idle is something the friends and family allocation does not require. No invitation list, no discretionary selection by an executive you have never met, no network membership fee collected over years of relationship building. You earned your capital through time and labor. The access gap is not proof that your capital is worth less. It is proof that access to certain instruments is rationed by proximity, not by merit or money. That distinction is not a reason to stop investing. It is a reason to stop assuming that equal price means equal terms. The $135 you paid bought you shares. It did not buy you the same optionality as the person standing next to you in the cap table. The SpaceX IPO will be studied for a long time, not just because of the valuation, not just because of the scale, but because it made the access gap visible in a way that is hard to argue with. $3.75 billion, no lockup. Selected and executive discretion. That sentence is in the S1. It is not conjectured. Drop a comment below with the broker used for this IPO and what your freeze window was. I want to see the actual distribution across the audience. And if you know someone who was confused about why the lockup felt different for different people, that is exactly what Salary to Strategy exists to decode. I am Thane.